Rejection. The moment when someone ignores you, when the presence you once thought mattered becomes invisible. It hits like a gut punch, sharp, sudden, and cruel. But it's more than just a fleeting moment. It's a scar that stays long after the no is spoken or the door is closed. We've all felt it. When we gave our hearts, our loyalty, our time, when we were there for them, through their storm, through their chaos, we stood by their side, believing we were someone to them, only to be discarded like we were nothing. And it hurts. It burns in places no one can see. You try to shrug it off, but deep down, it's like carrying a weight you can't put down. They treated us like an option, like something replaceable, used when convenient, forgotten when no longer needed. They made us feel small, insignificant, as though who we are could never be enough. You replay every memory, every moment you showed up for them. You remember how you stayed when they were lost, broken, or just needed someone to listen. You gave pieces of yourself, thinking it mattered, thinking you mattered. But when it was time for them to show up for you, they were nowhere to be found. They left. Oh, it made me cry. How they can do this after all you have done for them. They walked away like it was nothing, like you were nothing, like the memories you shared, the promises made, the trust built were all disposable. They didn't even look back while you stood there, shattered, wondering how someone could be so heartless. And maybe, just maybe, the cruelest part isn't that they left, it's how they left. Without explanation, without closure, leaving you to pick up the pieces they scattered. They made you question your worth, your value, your very existence. How could someone you cared about so deeply reduce you to nothing so easily? But here's the thing they don't want you to know, the truth. They don't want you to realize that their rejection was never about your worth. But recognition is the first step to reclaiming your strength. You can't fix what you refuse to face. So today, we're shining a light on those destructive patterns, starting with the most dangerous and deceptive of them all, silence. This isn't your ending, it's your beginning. But first, you have to face what's holding you back. And now, it's time for today's affirmation. So affirm with me, I refuse to break. Say it loud, say it strong, and believe it with everything you have. Don't just keep this power to yourself. You're not that cruel. You do care about others going through the same struggle, the same rejection, the same heartbreak. So write it in the comments. Show them they're not alone. Show them that we rise together. Remind someone out there who feels shattered that their story doesn't end here. Be that voice of strength for someone who's searching for a reason to keep going. Drop it in the comments. Simple, just right. I refuse to break. And while you're at it, press that like button. It helps spread this message to more people who need to hear it. People looking for strength when they feel like they've lost it all. 1. Silence and overthinking. Silence. In some stories, it's powerful. In some hearts, it creates longing, mystery, and even desire, but only if there's still a spark left. But when someone has already rejected you, when they've already moved on, silence becomes something entirely different. It becomes your prison. It's that endless void where you're trapped alone, replaying every word, every action, and every mistake, hoping to make sense of why they left. Their silence isn't mysterious. It's final. And the longer you sit in it, the louder it gets. I know what you're thinking. Maybe if I stay silent, they'll miss me. Maybe they'll notice your absence. Maybe they'll realize what they've lost. But they won't. Their silence isn't a test or a mind game. It's a statement, a decision, and the cruelest truth that ended long ago. Silence after rejection feels like being locked in a dark room with no way out. You sit there, paralyzed by memories, convinced that if you just wait long enough, they'll remember you. You become your own warden, keeping yourself imprisoned by holding on to someone who let go of you a long time ago. Every moment of silence feels like another rejection, another reminder that they don't care enough to reach out. You convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, they're still thinking about you. But deep down, you know they're not. And that's the hardest truth to face. Think about it. How many times have you stared at your phone, hoping for a message that never came? How many sleepless nights have you spent imagining them missing you, only to wake up to nothing? That's what silence does. It creates false hope. It keeps you trapped in the illusion that you still matter to someone who's already closed that chapter. But here's something they don't want you to realize. You don't need them to break the silence you've been waiting for their words to set you free. The key to that prison was never in their hands. It's been in yours this whole time. Their silence doesn't define your worth. It only defines their lack of care, their inability to value you, and their decision to move on. It's brutal, but it's the truth. Look at some of the world's most iconic stories of resilience. Famous people who were rejected and met with silence but refused to let it break them. Think of J.K. Rowling, whose Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers. Silence after silence, rejection after rejection. She could have given up, let the silence drown her dreams. But she didn't. Today, she's one of the most successful authors in history because she chose action over waiting for validation. Then there's Oprah Winfrey, who was told she wasn't fit for TV. Imagine hearing that, feeling discarded in an industry where rejection is constant, and responding not by shrinking into silence, but by building one of the most powerful media empires the world has ever seen. Even on everyday online forums, you'll find stories of people overcoming silence. I read one about a woman whose long-term partner ghosted her after 5 years together. No explanation, no closure, just silence. For months, she waited, checked her phone obsessively, replayed old texts, until one day, she realized he wasn't coming back. She chose to move forward, got a promotion at work, started traveling, and built a life so full of joy that she no longer needed his words to heal. Her success was her freedom, not because she wanted to prove something, but because she stopped waiting. You have that same power within you. Their silence isn't your ending, it's your beginning. It's your chance to rewrite the story they walked away from. Stop waiting for them to miss you, for them to reach out, for them to explain themselves. They won't. They're living their life, and it's time for you to start living yours. Silence after rejection is only a prison if you let it be. It's not a signal that you were never good enough. It's proof that they never had the capacity to recognize your worth. Their words won't save you, and neither will their regrets. The only thing that will set you free is you. So now it's time to break free from the prison of silence. You've waited long enough. You've hoped, replayed memories, and lived in the emptiness their absence left behind. But no more. You are done being held hostage by someone's decision to walk away. You're done waiting for closure that will never come. You're done allowing their silence to define your worth. From this moment on, you take back the power. Speak not to them, but to yourself. Speak through your actions, through the life you're about to build, through the person you're becoming. Break your own silence and reclaim your voice. Say this out loud: I refuse to be silent. Write it in the comments. Declare it. Own it. Let the world know that your story doesn't end in silence. It begins with strength. 2. Pretending it doesn't hurt. Pretending you're fine after rejection is like putting a fresh coat of paint over a crumbling wall. It might look strong from a distance, but underneath, it's still falling apart. You wear a mask, a carefully crafted facade of, "I'm okay," hoping that if you pretend long enough, the pain will just vanish. But hiding your feelings doesn't heal them. It only buries them deeper, where they silently eat away at your spirit. I know why you do it. You don't want anyone to see how much it actually hurts. You think showing pain makes you look weak, vulnerable, pathetic. So you fake a smile, laugh when you feel like screaming, and act like you're completely unbothered. You tell yourself, if I look strong, I'll be strong. But let's be honest, it's exhausting, isn't it? The constant pretending, the endless performance for a world that doesn't even know the battle you're fighting behind closed doors. They left, rejected you, or moved on. And instead of facing the storm of emotions, you built a dam to hold it all back. You became an expert at suppressing your feelings, convincing even yourself that you're fine. But emotional pain is like a ticking time bomb. You can only hide it for so long before it explodes in ways you never expected. It shows up in your sleepless nights, in the ache you can't quite explain, in that hollow feeling that no amount of distractions can fill. You might think you're protecting yourself by pretending it doesn't hurt, but what you're really doing is delaying the healing process. You're trapping yourself in emotional limbo, stuck between what you feel and what you show. The longer you wear the mask, the more disconnected you become from your own heart. The worst part? No one ever really sees the real you. They only see the performance you put on, and that is lonely. Think about it. How many times have you responded with "I'm fine" when you were anything but fine? How many times have you gone out with friends, laughed, and acted like you were over it, only to break down the second you were alone? Pretending you're unbothered doesn't make you strong. It makes you invisible, even to yourself. Real strength isn't about appearing okay. It's about being okay eventually. And that starts by saying, "I'm not fine, but I will be." You don't have to tell the world, but tell yourself. Acknowledge the pain. Let yourself cry, scream, journal, whatever it takes to release what you've been holding in. This isn't weakness. It's healing. It's being brave enough to face what hurts so you can finally start moving forward. Say this out loud. I refuse to fake it. Write it in the comments. Declare it. Own it. Let the world know that you choose honesty over performance. You choose healing over pretending. You choose to be real for yourself. 3. Seeking revenge. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. After rejection, the idea of making someone pay for how they hurt you can feel intoxicating, like taking back control in a situation where you felt powerless. You imagine them regretting what they did, seeing you thrive, watching you become everything they thought you couldn't be. In your mind, revenge feels like justice, but in reality, it's a trap. Seeking revenge is fueling bitterness, and bitterness is a slow poison that only you end up consuming. The person you're hoping to hurt is probably living their life completely unaware of your plans, while you're stuck replaying old memories, plotting ways to make them feel your pain. They've moved on, and you're still chained to the past, driven by anger that only deepens your wounds. I know why you want it. You think, if they could just see how much I've changed, how much better I've become, maybe they'll regret leaving me. You imagine showing up at that party looking your absolute best, walking past them with someone new, and seeing the shock in their eyes. Or maybe you dream of building the life they never thought you could, just so you can throw it in their face. But here's the truth. They don't care. And even if they did, so what? Their regret doesn't fix what happened. Their remorse doesn't undo the hurt they caused. And living your life just to make them feel something keeps you trapped in their shadow. They still control your emotions. You've just swapped sadness for anger. I remember reading a story on a relationship forum about a woman whose partner left her after 10 years together for someone younger. She was devastated. At first, she spiraled into a bitter obsession, determined to make him regret leaving. She spent months comparing herself to his new partner, posting perfect pictures on social media, and living for his attention, even though he wasn't watching her. Revenge consumed her until she realized she was still giving him control over her life. When she finally stopped caring about what he thought, she built a life so fulfilling that his opinion no longer mattered. Her success wasn't revenge, it was freedom. And by the time he reached out, full of apologies and regret, she didn't even care. That's what you need to understand. Winning isn't about being better than them, it's about being free from them. It's about living your life for yourself, not as some performance meant to trigger their regret. Their approval or lack of it means nothing in the grand story of your life. Seeking revenge keeps your focus locked on the past. It keeps the fire of bitterness burning and burns you in the process. The best thing you can do isn't to make them miss you. It's to reach a point where you stop missing them. Let it go. Not for them, but for you. Stop plotting. Stop hoping they'll fall apart. Stop waiting for their regret. Choose peace, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. You can't move forward while carrying the heavy chains of resentment. Say this out loud. I release the past. Write it in the comments. Declare it. Own it. You don't need revenge. You don't need their regret. You only need yourself. 4. Comparing yourself to others. Comparison is a thief, a silent predator that steals your happiness while convincing you it's just motivation. After rejection, it feels almost instinctual to compare yourself to others, especially the person they might have chosen instead of you. You scroll through social media, see their highlight reels, and tell yourself, that's what I was missing. That's why I wasn't enough. But comparison isn't clarity, it's self-destruction. It's chasing ghosts in a race you were never meant to run. Rejection makes you believe there's something wrong with you, that if you'd just been prettier, smarter, funnier, more, things would have been different. So, you measure yourself against everyone they're with now, everyone they seem to value, forgetting that what people show the world is rarely the full story. You're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, and that's a battle you'll never win. I know what you're thinking. Maybe if I was more like them, they wouldn't have left. You convince yourself that changing who you are will somehow erase the rejection, make you better in ways you think they value. But the harsh truth is, you could have been everything they said they wanted, and it still wouldn't have been enough for someone who wasn't ready to appreciate you. The problem was never you. Their choice had nothing to do with your worth. It was about their limited capacity to value what's real. Think about it. How often have you wasted hours scrolling through social media, torturing yourself by comparing your life to perfectly curated snapshots? You see someone traveling the world, someone in a happy relationship, someone celebrating career success, and you start keeping score. But what you don't see are the struggles behind the scenes, the heartbreak, the failures, the sleepless nights. You're comparing someone else's surface to your soul, and that's not only unfair, it's destructive. I remember reading a story online about a guy who couldn't stop comparing himself to his ex's new partner. He thought, he's more successful, more outgoing. Of course she chose him. The more he obsessed, the more he spiraled, until one day he realized that nothing he saw online could define what actually mattered, his own life. He stopped comparing himself to a stranger and started building a life he was proud of. And when he finally let go of the comparison game, he found peace. Not because he won, but because he stopped competing. Here's the truth. You were never in competition. You were never running a race. There's no prize in proving you're better than someone else. Your life is yours. Your path is unique. And someone else's success, beauty, or happiness doesn't diminish your own potential. Comparing yourself only keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, while blinding you to everything you already are. Stop asking, why them, not me? Start asking, why does it matter? The only person you should be comparing yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Focus on your growth, your happiness, and your journey. What someone else has or who someone else chose isn't your story. Your story is still being written. Say this out loud. I choose my path. Write it in the comments. Declare it. Own it. You're done measuring your worth by someone else's life. Your only competition is you. Number 5. Settling for less. Rejection leaves a hole inside you, a goring emptiness that whispers you'll never be good enough. In that vulnerable space, desperation creeps in, convincing you to settle for anything just to feel wanted again. You start accepting breadcrumbs, mistaking them for love. You lower your standards because being treated badly feels better than being alone. But settling isn't survival, it's self-betrayal. I get it. After rejection, loneliness feels unbearable. You tell yourself something is better than nothing. But deep down, you know that's not true. You know it every time you let someone back into your life who doesn't value you. You know it when you make excuses for their half-hearted effort, their broken promises, their lack of respect, just so you don't have to face another night alone. You become addicted to the idea of being wanted, even if the reality is empty. But here's the harsh truth. Settling never fills the void, it only deepens it. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you lose a piece of yourself, your dignity, your self-worth, your belief that you're worthy of something real. And the worst part? The more you settle, the harder it becomes to break free. You start believing that maybe this is the best you'll ever get, and that's the lie that keeps you trapped. I remember reading a story about a woman who kept going back to an emotionally unavailable ex. He only called when he needed something, only showed up when it was convenient for him. She convinced herself that at least he still cared, but he didn't. He cared about having access to her, not about her. It wasn't until she hit her breaking point, tired of being an option in his life, that she finally walked away. And when she did, she discovered something life-changing. Being alone is far better than being used. Stop settling. Stop accepting less just because you're scared of being alone. Loneliness hurts, but it's temporary. Self-abandonment lasts forever. Don't trade your worth for scraps. Don't sacrifice your soul for someone who can't even meet you halfway. You were never meant to live a life where you're tolerated instead of treasured. Say this out loud. I deserve more. Write it in the comments. Declare it. Own it. You're done settling. You're done making excuses for people who don't value you. You're done accepting less than what your heart truly deserves. And now, let's keep going. Number 6. Changing yourself to please others. Changing yourself to please others is like carving pieces of your soul just to fit into someone else's tiny, temporary world. You bend, shrink, and reshape yourself, hoping they'll finally see you, finally choose you. But the truth? They never will, because anyone who needs you to become less in order to love you doesn't deserve any version of you. Rejection makes you question everything, your looks, your personality, even your worth. You start asking, was I too much? Not enough? What can I change to make them stay? You think that if you could just be funnier, smarter, prettier, or more successful, they'll finally realize what they lost. So you transform yourself thinking, this time, they'll love me. But here's the brutal truth. You will never be enough for the wrong person. They didn't leave because you weren't good enough. They left because they weren't capable of valuing someone like you. Let that sink in. No amount of changing will fix someone else's inability to appreciate what's real. You could become everything they claim to want, and they'd still find a reason to walk away. Why? Because the issue was never you, it was them. Think about it. How many times have you dimmed your light just to make someone comfortable? How many times have you said, it's fine, when it wasn't, just to avoid being too emotional? How many times have you dressed differently, acted differently, or lived differently because you thought it would make someone stay? And in the end, they still left. I remember reading a story about a guy who completely changed himself for his ex. He started working out, changed his style, even pursued a career he hated, thinking it would impress her. And for a while, it worked. She came back, not because she loved him, but only because she loved what he'd become. But inside, he felt empty. He wasn't living his life. He was living the version of himself she wanted. And when she left again, he realized he'd lost himself. Stop twisting yourself into a shape that doesn't belong to you. Stop sacrificing who you are just to be accepted by someone who was never meant to stay. Love that comes with conditions isn't love. It's manipulation. You were never meant to be edited, altered, or fixed. You were meant to be seen, fully, unapologetically. Say this out loud, I am enough. Write it in the comments, declare it, own it. You're done changing to fit someone's shallow expectations. You're done being a version of yourself that makes others comfortable. You are enough exactly as you are. And now, let's keep going. 7. Becoming emotionally numb. Becoming emotionally numb or shutting down is often mistaken for strength. They sell you the idea that staying strong means feeling nothing, that you should suppress and build walls so high that nothing can ever hurt you again. They call it strength, but it's not. Numbness isn't power, it's paralysis. It's the slow death of your ability to feel, to experience joy, love, connection, or even life itself. I get it. After rejection, shutting down feels like the only option. The pain was too much, too sharp, so you built emotional armor and promised yourself never again. You told yourself, if I don't feel, I can't get hurt. But here's the harsh truth. Numbing the bad also kills the good. You can't shut out pain while still expecting to feel love, peace, or happiness. Numbness is the ultimate thief. You start walking through life like a hollow version of yourself. You smile because it's expected. You say, I'm fine, because that's easier than explaining the void inside. But you know what's worse than heartbreak? Feeling nothing at all. Numbness is rejection's cruelest gift, but it delivers isolation. You disconnect, not just from the people around you, but from yourself. Think about how many times you've brushed off real emotions by saying, it doesn't matter, or I don't care. How many relationships have you kept at arm's length because getting close felt too risky? How many chances at happiness have you avoided because, why bother? It won't last. I remember reading a story on a mental health forum about a woman who went through a devastating breakup. She told herself she'd never let anyone get that close again. She buried her feelings so deep that even her friends thought she was so strong, but inside, she was frozen. Years passed, and even when she met someone kind and loving, she couldn't open up. She realized she hadn't protected herself. She'd imprisoned herself. True Stoicism isn't about feeling nothing. It's about embracing everything and still choosing to rise. The Stoics didn't teach numbness. They taught resilience. They taught us to feel the pain but not be controlled by it, to face hardship with courage, not hide from it. Feeling is what makes you human. Healing comes when you stop running from emotions and start allowing them. Stop wearing numbness like a badge of honor. Stop pretending that being unbothered makes you powerful. It doesn't. What makes you strong is your ability to feel, heal, and rise again. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's freedom. Say this out loud: I choose to feel. Write it in the comments, declare it, own it. You're done being emotionally numb. You're done living behind walls that keep the world and yourself out. Feel everything and rise anyway.